Hey YouTube, so a lot of you guys want to know how the R5 Amenoma Kageuchi stacks up to the R1 counterpart from the previous video, and by a lot of you I mean like literally 2 of you guys, but that's okay. I don't really do these videos reviews anymore. Also, disclaimer, this isn't a damage test. The weapon is level 20 and we are just testing the energy refund part of the weapon. And at R5 with 3 stacks you should get 36 energy back, which is quite a lot compared to the 18 energy you get at R1. We're also going to be doing our testing in the Spiral Abyss since we always get our ult back there. And in the last video we noted that the perk is not affected by energy recharge, which means that it could work with during low tide of floor 12, where particles don't give you any energy at all. You just get 0 energy. So it could work during low tide, which is really good. Now we're mainly going to be testing characters with an 80 energy burst like Ayaka, Jin, Xingqiu, etc. But we're also going to include a few 60 energy burst characters in there as well. And sadly, I don't have any of the 240 energy cost sword characters, so they will be excluded. But let's start with Ayaka since I main Ayaka, and I guess for the second half we just throw in fucking Dante. Alright, so now low tide is here. I'm cast my ult. So during low tide, the perk of the weapon does not work at all. So that's interesting to note. So because of that, we are going to be switching to floor 11 so I don't forget about low tide. So I'm going to cast my burst now. And we got like half of our ultimate back. And now we're getting energy for killing these enemies. So we actually got quite a lot of energy. So you get 36 energy from the sword alone. Ayaka's burst costs 80 energy. So that means it's going to take, what, 44 energy to get your ult back up. And Ayaka generates a lot of energy by default. And if she's using her burst, she's likely going to be getting kills with it. So I'd highly recommend this for Ayaka if you do not have the brand new Mist Splitter sword, or like a Black Cliff or something, if you're just going for raw damage over like rotation speed. So now let's do the most requested one, which is Jin. Like this at R1 was really good for Jin, but now we get 36 energy back with 3 stacks of the weapon perk here, and we also get another 16 energy back from talents. That's 52 energy back. So our burst should only really cost like 28 energy, which is kind of crazy actually. That's really good for Jin. So let's go try it out and let's see how effective it is. And I also want to see how many E's does it take for us to build up our ultimate, considering my Jin has like no energy recharge. And now we have all 3 stacks. Let's cast our ultimate. And yeah, that's most of our ultimate back. So I'm gonna press E again. Okay. So we'll need like a couple more E's to get our ultimate back up. Overall, this is quite good for Jin, especially if you were like struggling, or if you use Barber a lot, for example, like I do personally, and you didn't really like Jin as a character because you thought they were going to be like similar characters roughly as far as healing power goes, and turns out they're fucking not. She just kind of felt off as a character to play compared to her younger sister. But this definitely makes Jin way more relevant as a character, especially with her upcoming competition. May or may not just blow her and every other healer out of the water. Now for Xingqiu, who I didn't really recommend previously since there were much better options for Xingqiu. Like if you're going to run him as in a support build, then you want to run like Sacrificial. If you're running him in a sub DPS or main DPS build, you want a Lion's Roar for reasons I explained in the previous video. But this is like a middle ground between the 2 weapons, but even then it takes a full minute to get 3 stacks with this weapon because of his extremely long E cooldown. And the only way to reduce it otherwise is what? Through Chongyun's E at like Constellation 2, and even then it's not a huge cooldown reduction. So I am very skeptical that this will work on him, but let's see. And there is 3 stacks. We're gonna cast our ultimate, and then we get roughly half of our ultimate back. All right, so that's the equivalent of like the R1 version plus an E. So that's not horrible. If you have like nothing, I guess it's okay, but a full minute to charge this up. And then okay, so it's gonna take like what, 1 or 2 E's to get his ult back. Don't think that's worth it. But overall, I'm still not convinced on Xingqiu using this weapon. Like, he'd be much better off with weapons like even fucking Favonia's sword over this weapon, personally. Especially considering that all of his builds, including his main DPS build, revolve around his burst. Because, like, with his main DPS build, he needs Constellation 4, which gives him, like, a massive boost in damage towards his E. But he has to have his burst up in order for him to get this damage boost, otherwise it's not worth anything. So I'd probably stay away from this weapon. Now, Electro Traveler is another character I was not too sure about with the R1 version, because he doesn't really care about attack. He cares about like elemental mastery if he's just going to be a sub DPS. And even then, if he wanted like to run an energy recharge weapon, like he multiplies energy recharge, so it wasn't really a problem for him. But other than that, if you actually have like decent artifact stats, like you have like a good electro pieces and you're actually like using them on Traveler, which I do not, so I'm not using those, then he could really benefit from this weapon.
Lightning flash, take this.
So we have 3 stacks now. We're gonna cast our burst, and we should get like half of our ult back, but that's not horrible for a sub DPS build. Or again, if you just had no energy recharge weapons, this would be pretty good for him. If you have decent crit artifacts for Electro Traveler, then yeah, this is the way to go. I'm also going to include Bennett and Kaeya like I did in the last video. Now, like I said, Bennett is like the best pyro battery in the entire game, so he doesn't really need this weapon. But again, if you have no other energy recharge weapons, then this is pretty solid, as it has a little higher base attack than the 3-star options that he has, like Skyrider Sword. But for a 4-star weapon, it's a relatively low base attack compared to like Prototype Rancor, which has 44 base attack. But even at R1, this gives him 100% burst uptime, which is relatively solid, even if he's really like not paying attention to his ease and rotation. So it's still decent option. It's just that because Festering Desire also gives him high base attack and energy recharge, it was just the better option for free-to-play players. And if we're going to compare the other energy recharge swords, well, they have a higher base attack than this one. So it had a tough time competing.
Teamwork is dreamwork.
More than half your ult, like 75% of your ult. And then if you cast like E again, like 2 more times, 3 more times, then you get his ult back. But that's literally like the same amount of ease you need to get back his ult at R1. So if you're gonna use this weapon on Bennett, don't refine it. Kaeya, on the other hand, could definitely use the burst uptime. In fact, if he had like 100% burst uptime, I'm pretty sure he'd be used more, as he definitely is a better support for like Diluc than Xingqiu, actually, because he will give you more damage. And he does apply cryo almost as fast as Xingqiu. It's just the problem is like the hitting of his actual ultimate that requires like proper spacing, and that's annoying. But the burst uptime is definitely needed on him at C0, which I have him at. But I did say that damage wise, Iron Sting is better, and it definitely is as far as like Melted and Vaporize go if you're going down that route. But other than that, this is better for Freeze Kaeya, and this also helps his self heal that I forgot to mention in the last video, which scales off of his attack. On top of that, Kaeya generates additional particles when he freezes a target with his E. So overall, I think this is a pretty solid weapon for a sub DPS Kaeya build. Now my Kaeya is only level 50, so I'm gonna add a Zhongli to his side, mainly because if I add Diona, that's gonna speed up his ult generation, and Zhongli provides like an energy deficit in any team he's on, so this would actually be relatively good for this test, since he generates like no energy. So this should be a relatively controlled test.
Dodge this. Cool it. Dodge this.
And there is 3 stacks. We're gonna cast our ultimate, and we have a lot of our ultimate back, and then if we cast another E, we can get quite a decent amount of energy, but we still don't get 100% uptime on our ultimate without any energy recharge. So overall, the weapon is great. The perk is fantastic. I think the main problem is because it's attack percent, because that's more of like a DPS stat, it doesn't suit most of the single-handed sword cast, because an overwhelming majority of the one-handed sword users are supports or sub DPS characters, with the only 2 exceptions being Ayaka and Xingqiu. They're the only 2 like main DPS characters that could take like full advantage of the attack percent stat, other than the healers that will heal off of attack percent, like Jean and occasionally Kaeya, because for whatever reason he has a self heal. And as far as like the 40 energy cast characters like Xingqiu and Albedo has 0 problems with energy gain, And he actually generates quite a lot of energy particles, so he doesn't need this weapon at all. Unless for whatever reason you were doing like a main DPS build on him, then you'd probably want the attack percent. But the characters that need this weapon the most are Keqing and Jean. And Jean was very energy hungry if you tried to maximize her healing potential rather than her burst uptime potential. And even then, she didn't really heal that much compared to her younger sister Barbara. So this really like brings her up in relevancy, but I'm not sure how long that relevancy is gonna last. Anyway guys, I wanna thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.